A Warhol in the bathroom and a dressing room modeled after Coco Chanel's in Paris, with room for all sorts of clothing, including the uniquely American staple Serena Altschul tells us about.
So all kinds of experiments are happening here.
At the Eureka Innovation Lab in San Francisco, testing is underway. But you won't find a white coat in this laboratory.
So this is where the magic happens with the laser.
Oh, wow.
Here, you're more likely to find a pair of jeans.
Oh my God, it's on fire.
I mean, Levi's, to me, is kind of the birth of cool.
Protecting that cool is the mission of Levi's design director, Paul O'Neill.
There's so much work in progress.
He considers himself a custodian of the company's many legendary styles,
But this is how it all began.
including one superior fit.
I mean, we tried to not to touch the 501 so much. Like from its beginnings in 1873 up until the late 1940s, all of the changes that happened were practical.
This year, that iconic pair is celebrating 150 years.
What's the difference between the 501 and some of the other models and jeans that you could try on and buy at Levi's?
Well, it's always a straight blue jean. I mean, when we look at other fits, we've got like skinnies, flares, bell bottoms, you know, all bells and whistles, but the 501 always just remains very simple and classic.
So it's not going to follow the trends, period.
No, it's something you can rely on.
Finding a reliable and durable pair of pants was the goal of businessman Levi Strauss and his tailor, Jacob Davis.
This is an 1873 or 1874 model year.
Levi's historian Tracy Panic says those trusty pants weren't possible until Davis added a rivet, creating the modern-day blue jean.
He came up with the idea of adding a little bit of metal in the pockets where your hands are going in and out, and to stop them from ripping, you added a little bit of that metal, and it stopped that.
But why the number 501?
It's simply a lot number, a simple way to keep records. 501 is the best, top of the line.
Top of the line, but the 501 was made for everyday blue-collar workers.
At the time, they were called overalls because you'd pull them up over your clothes to have this protective outer garment.
Nowadays, just about everyone has worn a pair of Levi's, from presidents to hippies to Hollywood.
Isn't that cute? Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got?
They were even part of Steve Jobs' uniform.
But we've got something unusual on his. Check out all the
Yeah,
buttons.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So he did that himself. He put in suspender buttons. Like, that's
did.
hilarious.
Yeah.
As for the most efficient way to break in a new pair of 501s, Paul O'Neill has the secret.
You can sit in the bathtub in them. If you buy a pair of jeans that are the right size for you, but maybe a bit too long in the leg to allow the shrinkage, and if you sit in the tub, the jeans will mold to your body shape. So you'll truly get a unique pair of 501s.
Tricks of the trade. I love it.
Dress for success is advice not normally tailored to third graders, until our Steve Hartman enters the picture.
Most 8-year-old boys don't get dressed to the nines. To them, suits are for bathing, and formal is a 4-letter word. But James Ramage of Chelsea, Maine loves to dress for third grade success. He started a couple years ago, and at first, the other kids didn't know what to think.
Every time I saw him, I was just like, okay. And I'm like, why is he dressing up?
James knew he stood out.
Did you just decide one day, I don't care what other people are wearing?
I don't need to look like them anymore. I can be who I want to be.
In any school, a decision like that can go a few different ways. You can be accepted for who you are, ostracized for who you aren't, or, in very rare circumstances, you can become a trendsetter.
It just kind of started.
Then more people started to do it.
Because it looks fun, and now people absolutely love it.
Today, once a week, Chelsea Elementary kids put on their finest for Dapper Wednesday. It's not a dress code. It's not because some adult said so. It's because the children chose so.
Nice dresses.
Teacher Dean Paquette was an early adopter and now an avid advocate.
Stop, look at this. You look awesome.
Being dressed up, kids are different.
It is.
I think it's a self-esteem thing, and then it carries with them all the way through the day.
All right.
The kids agree. Told me they love how it feels.
I'm a little itchy, but it's fine.
Figuratively speaking.
It feels like I'm not a kid anymore. It made me feel like I was ready for the day. It feels like I'm like a president.
When James started all this, he had no idea the impact.
What's it like to be a trendsetter?
It just feels so nice.
But he doesn't think every kid should wear suits. Just whatever suits them.
Just wear what they want to wear.
Self-confidence. Always a good look.
Their steps seem almost effortless, but don't be fooled. You're watching Rai, Kylie, and Lila from New York's Ballet Academy East. Our Faith Saley walks a mile in their shoes.
In the world of ballet, Christmas means one thing: the Nutcracker. Stages across the country fill with twirling snowflakes, leaping candy canes, and lots of pointe shoes.
So how many pointe shoes do you think you go through in a year?
Oh gosh. Well, I can tell you like during a week, I would go through 10 pairs of shoes.
More than a shoe a day.
Yeah, it depends on what you're dancing, but I like a newer pair of shoe for every single show that I do.
Tyler Peck is a principal dancer and one of the Sugar Plum Fairies with the New York City Ballet. The company goes through more than 500 shoes a month during Nutcracker season.
Why do pointe shoes have to be replaced so often? Why can't you get a good pair and just use them for a while?
I think it's because we're sweating in the shoes and also we're dancing on the tips. So if there's nothing to kind of hold you up, it could be like really dangerous.
Ballerinas began dancing on their toes in the late 1700s when a dancer named Charles Didelot invented a system of wires to lift dancers off the ground, hovering on their toes, elongating the lines of their legs. This inspired the creation of the pointe shoes we know today, shoes sturdy enough to hold up a dancer without the help of wires. And centuries later, the shoes are still made by hand. One of the most respected manufacturers is Freed of London. Ray Rawlings has worked as one of the shoemakers here for nearly 30 years.
Everyone's a challenge, every shoe, every dancer.
This is a perfect shoe, Ray.
Yes.
That's so beautiful.
The makers usually don't meet the dancers. Many have never even seen a ballet. But they say they still feel connected to the art form.
You get pride in what you do in making shoes for these dancers, and you know, they just seem to like to bring the shoes to life.
Each maker has their own process, creating shoes that are slightly different. And every dancer has her own specifications. So when she finds a shoe that fits, she's a loyal customer.
Now, if I'm your prima ballerina and I stick with you, how do I know that my shoe was made by Ray?
Each maker's got their own maker stamp, and my one's the crown, so there can't be confusion. So, you know, when you do get a dancer, they stay with you for life, and all of their career.
It's kind of like matchmaking. Like once you find your soulmate, S-O-L-E, you stick with him.
The shoes might look like they're made of wood, but they aren't. Each is made from layers of fabric and paper hardened by flour paste, almost like a paper mache, and surrounded by satin. The shoemakers then flatten out the tip with a hammer, providing a platform strong enough to support a dancer, but only for so long.
So when you put a hot, sweaty foot in there, it breaks in quick, it hits its sweet zone for a while, and then it just breaks down.
So a sweet zone is like one show?
Yeah.
Lynette Rowe is the shoe supervisor at the New York City Ballet.
How much money do you spend per year on shoes?
Almost $780,000 a year. Yeah.
For how many dancers, approximately?
Well, I mean, including the men and the women and the apprentices, it's 101 dancers in the company.
How much does it hurt to dance in these?
You want to put one on?
Sure.
This is the point. Pull them out of the bag. If you want to know what it feels like, cinch it down.
So demure.
And then you adjust your bar.
There you go.
There must be a point to all this pain. So we checked in with the Sugar Plum Fairy.
So are you ready? How do the shoes feel?
Shoes feel good.
Is there any pain?
No, never while you're dancing. I think because, adrenaline and everything. Maybe sometimes after it's a little, they're a little sore or swollen, but we're so used to it.
And you're in the land of sweets. Nothing hurts.
Yeah, I know. I said this is my first show this season, and I was watching the tree grow backstage, and it's just never gets old. It's so magical.
And with that, the Sugar Plum Fairy is ready to put her best foot forward.
Aurora James is a successful fashion designer who's trying to reinvent her industry from the ground up. Alina Cho tells us all about it.
Of all of the labels in the fashion world, the ones applied to designer Aurora James are among the most eye-catching. At 38 years old, James has been called the fashion industry's #1 disruptor, who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo. Case in point, her Tax the Rich dress, worn by New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to the Met Gala in 2021, that raised eyebrows around the world. The tale of her meteoric rise has been documented by others, but now she's telling it herself in a memoir called Wildflower.
People say these things like, "Are you a little bit young?"
Okay, so I want to ask you about that. Why did you feel like now was the right time to write your life story?
I think social media has done such a great / horrible job at showing what it means to be a successful woman in today's society, right? It's you have to be buttoned up, you have to be photogenic, and it's kind of just we can't expect everyone to be perfect.
Aurora James's own story began decidedly less than perfect, an itinerant and what she describes as a painful childhood spent between Canada and Jamaica.
And I remember, Alina, so many days just praying to God, that I would find myself in a place that was more safe and more comfortable and really make something of my life.
Well, you say there was one year where you read the Bible back to front 3 times.
Absolutely. I'm looking for salvation and hope.
Years later, she says, those prayers were answered. In 2011, she was 26, traveling in Africa, when a shoe changed everything.
And you were mesmerized by this shoe called the Veli.
The full word is Velskoen or Velskoen. We call it a Veli for short. I saw it as an opportunity to actually work with artisans in a meaningful way instead of just having them on the mood board like normally fashion brands were doing.
And so James took her life savings, modernized the classic shoe, and sold them at a New York street fair.
I was just taking a leap of faith and trying to do something.
And that something paid off. Those handcrafted shoes were the first step toward her very own luxury accessories brand, Brother Velis, praised for its focus on sustainability and empowerment of local artisans.
I came a long way from the flea market.
You certainly have.
Yeah. So now we work in South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, Mali, Bali, Haiti, Italy, America, Mexico, really all over the world.
She earned herself a seat at some of fashion's most elite tables. Still, she wasn't ready to sit back and relax, especially in 2020.
You really started thinking about racial justice versus economic justice.
Black people are almost 15% of the population. Major retailers should commit 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned businesses.
And with that, the 15% pledge was born, asking businesses to do just that.
So Nordstrom, 10-year pledge.
Oh, 10-year contract they signed.
Hundreds of Black-owned brands have been added to shelves of major retailers ever since.
It's not just about checking a box and then moving on. It's how do we make sure that they actually do well in the environment.
It is an industry transforming, life-changing.
The pledge itself called era-defining by Vogue's editor-in-chief Anna Wintour, and Aurora James hailed as a once-in-a-generation leader committed to designing a better future for all.
If you could tell little Aurora, who was struggling back in the day, something, what would you say?
I think just keep going, and all of these things that you're going through are actually going to be really helpful in understanding the world and perhaps tweaking the world a little bit too.
Tweaking. You've tweaked. You've tweaked.
Thank you.
You may not know the name, but you know his clothes. Alina Cho introduces us to the people's designer, fashion legend Stan Herman.
Even if you don't follow fashion, you've seen Stan Herman's work. Just not here or here.
He cut a sheath better than anybody in the world.
That's a Bob Mackie gown.
Lauren Hutton wore this dress.
Yes, she did, and
wow.
she's also a good friend of mine.
Part of a recent auction of dresses sponsored by the Council of Fashion Designers of America, or CFDA.
Red. Everything was written in red.
Herman is a former president of the CFDA and indisputably the elder statesman of American fashion. He's 95 and has the stories to prove it.
In the 40s and 50s, there wasn't such a thing as an American designer. They didn't let them in the front of the showroom.
Well, the Europeans thought that the Americans were copying them.
Awful. Well, that they were.
Who is Stan Herman, really? He's been called the people's designer, the most prolific designer you've never heard of.
I'm a short guy. I'm only 5'4", and I wanted to be a runner. And a little guy running really has to work harder than the big guys because those little legs never stop going. I never quite won every time, but they kept going.
As a child, some of Herman's earliest memories were helping his father, who owned a silk shop at Macy's. He served in the Army, even performed on Broadway, before getting his first big break in 1960, designing a label called Mr. Mort.
How would you describe the clothes that you were designing for Mr. Mort?
I was very sure that women that didn't have a lot of money could have good taste. I put big signs all over the place, said everything in this has to look twice the price. I ended up doing lots of clothes in solid colors because that, to me, looked very, very expensive.
Ally McGraw wore Mr. Mort. Michael Kors's mom did, too.
Before Ralph Lauren, before Calvin Klein, Stan was there. His clothes were accessible.
That is just one thread of Stan Herman's fascinatingly unconventional life, recounted in his memoir, Uncross Your Legs. Unconventional because Herman is best known for designing clothes that some might not consider, well, clothes. He designs uniforms.
They called me one day and said, would you be interested in doing uniforms for some large corporation? I said, what are you talking about? And they said, we represent Avis Rent-A-Car, and they're looking for a designer.
And you want a Plymouth Fury in 5 minutes. Okay.
And then I said, that's fun. And the next thing I knew, TWA came calling.
And now TWA serves you a delicious steak and coach.
And he's not the only one. Valentino, Halston, Bill Blass and Giorgio Armani designed uniforms too, but only Stan Herman made a career out of it. The ones he did for TWA are in the collection of the Smithsonian.
What struck me about those uniforms was that they look like clothes.
They are clothes. You hit the nail on the head. That's why Stan Herman's been very, very successful.
How's this for success? Herman designed what's arguably the most iconic, recognizable uniform ever made.
Clean, bright, fast, polite, with smiles that never end. Thank you.
This one for the Golden Arches that debuted in 1976. He's been designing for JetBlue since the beginning and for FedEx for 44 years. Every day of Carolyn Bentham's 28-year career as FedEx courier, she has worn a Stan Herman design.
And how does it feel?
Comfortable.
Yeah.
I feel like a superhero when I put this on.
Oh, yeah?
Did you hear that? They're very modern. I even have customers that want to wear it.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not going to toot my horn more. I think I look good in my uniform.
It's great.
And because Stan Herman is the people's designer,
He's here in the studio, our good friend Stan Herman.
he also sells loungewear on QVC.
It is funny that at the end of my life, I'm known as the guy who's dressing people in fancy house dresses.
Stan Herman may not be a household name, but he's dressed millions of households. And at nearly 96, he's not done yet. Not even close.
There are very few poets in our industry. I was a good commercial designer who took from here and here and here and made it look right.
The word sneaker dates back to the late 1800s. Rubber soles made it possible to sneak quietly to your destination. Well over a century later, Califasane tells us, there's a lot of noise about sneakers, one brand in particular.
When you visit New Balance, you will be judged.
I can walk in a room and pretty much know what people are wearing very quickly.
And when you talk to the company's CEO, Joe Preston, some things are better left unsaid.
I feel a slight chill breeze come over this whole area anytime I even say Nike or Adidas. And certainly when you look around, no one's wearing anything except New Balance. Is it tribal? Is it competitive in that way?
I think the industry is competitive, and we're competitive.
You don't even like to say their names, do you?
I have said them.
Nike brings in more than $50 billion a year. Adidas exceeds $20 billion. New Balance is smaller but growing fast. Revenue last year was $6.5 billion, a 23% increase from the year before. A brand once associated with Steve Jobs is now linked to athletes and pop stars.
We are trying to make the best product for athletes, and then we're also making product that people can wear to express their personality, to wear on the weekends.
Right.
I love them.
How are we doing today? New Balance is older than its larger competitors. It was founded in 1906 in Massachusetts, where it's still based. In those days, it just made inserts for shoes.
It's all based on a chicken's foot.
A chicken's foot?
That's right, yeah. If you notice the way a chicken walks, it's never really off balance.
Its first sneaker was a 1961 running shoe called the Trackster.
Run like a chicken.
Run like a chicken.
Chris Davis is Chief Marketing Officer.
I grew up wearing New Balance every single day. I consider New Balance to be more of like a brother or sister.
Perhaps because Chris's dad, Jim Davis, bought the 66-year-old company in 1972.
And what is he buying at that point?
He's buying a running shoe with 6 employees, making 20 pairs of shoe a day.
By the 1980s, running was a fitness craze, and New Balance introduced a shoe called the 990.
It was the first shoe that broke the $100 barrier, but it was also the first shoe that was designed for runners specifically running in the city.
You have a cutting department, you have a pre-fit department, you have a computer stitching and assembly, and it kind of goes around.
Ray Wentworth oversees production.
Building a shoe piece by piece.
We are.
990s have been made here in Lawrence, Massachusetts since 1982. The factory helped revive the old industrial city's economy.
So many of the people who work at Lawrence are from Lawrence. It's a sense of pride for the community of Lawrence, but it's also a sense of pride for New Balance.
New Balance has a second factory in Massachusetts, 3 in Maine, and a new one being built in New Hampshire.
We want to be the best, most premium sneaker brand in the world, and the only way that we can do that is by making shoes in the United States.
At least some of them. Most New Balance shoes are made overseas.
This is where the labs are. This is where the science is.
This is where the magic happens.
Recently, New Balance opened an athletic facility across the street from their headquarters in Boston. At their research lab, they don't test athletes, just their shoes.
This is flex testing, so it's basically mimicking steps, a lot of steps at a very rapid rate.
In 2019, Chris Davis also began a partnership with the American fashion label Aimé Leon Dore, first creating versions of the 990, then, a year later, reissuing a lesser-known basketball shoe from 1989.
The 550 blew up.
550 absolutely blew up. At the height of the 550, we were selling 80,000 pairs in a minute. Like, the 550 not only took the industry by storm, but it took us by storm. We knew it was going to be successful, but we didn't realize how successful it could be.
Last year, Teddy Santis, Aimé Leon Dore's founder, signed on as New Balance's creative director, in charge of its Made in the USA line.
I'm wearing New Balance 650s right now.
Yeah.
Made in China. Will these ever be made in the US?
We stick to our high-end premium retro running shoes in the United States.
Are you calling my sneakers low end?
Those are definitely premium.
As garments go, it couldn't be simpler. But in some ways, that's skirting the issue. Faith Saley unwraps the rich history of the skirt.
What do pencils and poodles have in common? Hoops and hobbles? They are skirts, of course.
When I say the word skirt, what words come to your mind?
How big can it be? What length would you like it to be?
For designer Christian Siriano, the skirt is a transformative piece of clothing. The options are endless: mini, midi, maxi, asymmetric, straight, or frothy.
The skirt is about being free, having more movement, not being kind of trapped inside something, which I think a pant does, and a skirt is more freeing.
That feeling is sewn into the definition of the word skirt, a piece of clothing meant to dangle from the waist and move around the body with few restrictions.
I find them more comfortable. They're a canvas for beautiful textiles, which I love.
Kimberly Chrisman Campbell is the author of Skirts, and she says, as unfettered as they might appear, skirts are tied to some meaningful history.
They tell us a lot about our culture and our values and how we treat and think of women themselves.
While skirts have certainly hemmed women into traditional notions of femininity, they've also dramatically demonstrated the power of the wearer.
Textiles were extremely expensive before the Industrial Revolution. The bigger the skirt, the more fabric you needed, the more wealth you were displaying.
Early 20th century skirts gradually became shorter and narrower, especially during World War II when material was rationed. But in 1947, designer Christian Dior repudiated that starkness with an ultra-feminine silhouette called the New Look. While the 1950s poodle skirt was an evolution of that voluminous look, Chrisman Campbell sets the story straight about its popularity.
Poodle skirt comes from poodle fabric, which was a sort of hairy, stiff, but lightweight fabric. It was only later, after the skirt came into being, that designers started decorating them with poodles.
And while we're myth-busting, you may be surprised to learn about the origin of the miniskirt.
No one thought it was sexy to begin with. When it was introduced in 1964, it was something that looked like you could buy it in the children's department. It had ruffles, or it had bows, or polka dots. It made women look like little girls playing dress up.
So the miniskirt was created for young women who didn't want to look grown up.
That's right. The miniskirt addressed that gap in the market, dressing women who were young but did not want to look like their mothers.
For many women, though, the choice to wear a skirt wasn't theirs to make.
It was only in the late 1970s that women were allowed to wear pants in many schools and restaurants and workplaces.
It wasn't until this year that the U.S. Marine Corps ended its last skirt mandate for women. While the skirt has become a ubiquitous female symbol, men across the world have traditionally shown some leg.
Skirts are an extremely masculine garment in many cultures. We think of it as something feminine in the West, but the Scottish kilt, for example, is a garment associated with tough warrior Highlanders.
And let's not forget Tonga's tupanu, famously flaunted during the Olympics opening ceremony.
Tonga!
As for American men brave enough to flirt with their hemlines,
how did it start with you designing for Billy Porter?
Yeah, my Billy moment, which was probably my most famous skirt moment. And he just loved it, and he loved the idea that he could wear something that was like still somewhat classic, which every other woman would be wearing, so why couldn't he wear that?
And so the skirt comes full circle. While it once stitched women into traditional roles, it now offers men something to step into to shatter stereotypes.
There are no rules, you wear what you want to wear.
I saw this as a land that I loved. There's a sense of freedom.
At the wheel of a rusty pickup truck that's seen a lot of unpaved roads, Ralph Lauren surveys his 20,000-acre Colorado spread.
You see the brown wood and the sort of fade and the tin roofs. It's all part of the history.
In a rustic cabin nestled in an open field. In the majestic mountain vistas, he found his muse, his inspiration.
It's about showing people in America or wherever I was that this is beautiful.
And for 50 years, that passion for timeless style, elegance, romance has informed a distinct fashion sensibility.
You can adjust it. Make some adjustments.
Let's see it. I don't have to adjust it.
Yes, you do.
You're
You're being a
good.
gentleman. Honestly, fix it.
Fix it?
Yeah,
all
do
right.
it right.
No, I don't do that.
He's outfitted the U.S. Olympic team since 2008 and dressed Nancy Reagan, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, and Melania Trump. But growing up in the Bronx, Ralph Lauren did not foresee a future in fashion.
My mother and father wanted me a doctor or a lawyer or something that was safe, a teacher. So I think I'm very lucky. I could have been the doorman. I could have been anybody. And I think about that all the time.
You weren't preparing yourself for greatness.
Oh, I prepared myself for greatness in my mind. I did what a lot of kids did, go to the movies on Saturday afternoons and come out thinking I'm dueling with my brother or my friends and think I'm Tarzan. So there was a lot of dreaming in the Bronx. You didn't know what you were going to be.
But what Ralph Lauren had, even as a kid, was an eye for style.
What I love about this picture is, well, pretty much everything. I love it's an outfit, it is confidence, and it also looks like a Ralph Lauren picture from your future.
I thought I was cool. The sweater was my brother's, and I think a jacket was my other brother's. And I'm wearing my own Levi's at the time.
When you were styling, and you were styling with your brother's hand-me-downs, and for someone who was going to be in your business, that thing that sparked, you saw it young.
That's true, but I didn't know, I never knew this was fashion.
And yet, as a salesman in Manhattan's garment district in his early 20s, he had an epiphany about a menswear staple, the tie. It hadn't changed much in generations.
Neckties were a very important product for men. They express their sensibility. They can't buy new suits, but they can change their ties.
His tie was wider, bolder, pricier. And he called his brand Polo for a reason.
Polo represented a lifestyle, and the people that played polo were international and very elegant.
The success of polo ties begat menswear.
I was exposing what I loved and what I liked by designing clothes that fit the man who didn't want to look too fashiony, who didn't want to look like he was a dandy.
Ralph Lauren and Polo came to represent a world of luxury.
Polo by Ralph Lauren.
Whether rustic or refined, winning a lot of fans and not a few critics.
I do what I do. There are critics that love your clothes and critics that don't love your clothes.
The ones that didn't love it so much, what were they saying?
They didn't get it. But evidently, there must have been something I had to say, because 50 years in the fashion business that is a trendy, moving business is really hard to do that.
And it's been a big year for Lauren. This fall, his golden anniversary runway show was the glamorous high point of New York's Fashion Week. He was recently named an honorary knight by Queen Elizabeth. He threw out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium in September. And with a company now worth more than $10 billion, Ralph Lauren is a bona fide global icon. But Ralph Lauren was not the name he was born with. Until the age of 19, he was known as Ralph Lifshitz.
In the world I was growing up, the word was a tough word. It was in my name. So that name change was not about being Jewish or not Jewish or being something else.
But for this designer, the name on the label isn't what matters most.
When a woman walks in a room and she's wearing Ralph Lauren, it is not your aspiration for the room to say, well, I think she's wearing Ralph Lauren.
I'm not about what I think is sometimes a fashion victim who has to wear a label to prove that she's got taste. If you enjoy something, I like that because you're expressing who you are.
And if you presumed Ralph Lauren would be wearing Ralph Lauren for our interview,
the shirt?
We'd have both been wrong.
Well, this shirt I bought at Kmart. This is living proof of what I believe in. I love the aging of it. I love the rips. I love it all. And I like the way I look at it.
You didn't design it?
I didn't design it.
I assumed it was.
No, I happen to like this because it's the one that I have memories of.
And how come you chose it for this conversation today?
I want to look great.
And at 79, he looks pretty great. But for Ralph Lauren, fashion is not about how clothes make you look. It's about how they make you feel.
I feel cooler now than ever.
Why? How?
Because I've enjoyed my career and I'm still working really hard and well.
50 years and counting.
So let's hope it goes on.
It's one of the hottest trends in fashion. Without a second to spare, here's Serena Altschul.
I think I got this for like 40 bucks.
Alia Alberwani loves fashion, but hardly ever pays full price.
What portion of your wardrobe would you say is secondhand?
About 60 to 70% of my closet is secondhand. You can find things that maybe somebody bought at full price and they never wore it, and you get to have it for a quarter of the price. And as someone who loves fashion, there's no better feeling.
Alberwani, a Houston-based doctor, is one of many hanging up old shopping habits.
Got this trench coat that I love that I also thrifted.
Secondhand shopping is one of fashion's fastest-growing trends.
How big is this secondhand clothing market?
It's a $35 billion market and growing. Billion. It's really, really been catching fire lately.
Chris Homer is co-founder and chief operating officer of thredUP. It's one of dozens of web-based consignment shops allowing consumers to buy and sell unwanted clothing.
We're listing items every minute of every day all day long, 100,000 plus items a day.
Instead of digging through racks of clothes, consumers can browse right on their phones. The clothes, on the other hand, are held at thredUP distribution sites around the country, where they're inspected, photographed, and eventually shipped to new owners.
Did things pick up even more during the pandemic?
Yes, all of a sudden having time to clean out at home, as well as wanting to change things out for things that are more casual and comfortable. I think that was one element. Another is the generational shift where Gen Z and millennials are really becoming native thrifters in how they consume. The importance of the environmental impact that people are having really has become even more in the forefront of people's minds.
Right now, the fashion industry is probably the third most polluting industry. It emits about 5 to maybe 10% of the world's carbon.
Allison Summer is Vice President of Public Affairs and Business Development at The Real Real, an online and brick-and-mortar high-end consignment shop.
So if you had a magic wand and you could change something in the fashion industry today, what's the first thing you would do?
Produce less. Produce less. We have too many clothes.
In fact, about 85% of clothing in the U.S., including donations, ends up in incinerators or landfills, mostly overseas.
95% of the items that hit a landfill could be reworn in their current form. So it's really just a problem of not necessarily knowing what else to do with an item that you're not using anymore.
Summer says she hopes this inspires consumers to rethink their own shopping style.
See you later. In a way, you guys broke the hardest part of the cycle, which is the stigma of clothes being bought a second time.
It's cool to wear secondhand now. You're finding a beautiful item that you feel good in, that you got a great deal on, and that's helping the planet.
Ah! Look at you, ready for a party.
And what's more fashion forward than that?
Thousands of years ago, artists in India decorated clothes for special occasions using tie-dye, which is to say the colorful technique existed long before Woodstock. Nancy Giles on tie-dye then and now.
What's important here is gathering the fabric.
Austin Makareth is in a groove.
It keeps me very present. I'm always in the moment.
His twists, scrunches, and ties transform into perfect pockets for a tie-dye kaleidoscope of colors.
It's controlled chaos.
His intricate works can take up to 30 hours to create.
So this is what it looks like super wet. When it's dry, it's going to lighten up a lot.
Oh, man. Makareth releases a handful of shirts online every week. They sell for hundreds to thousands of dollars.
They usually sell out within a couple seconds, like 30 seconds.
What? How does that make you feel?
I'm extremely grateful.
Back in 2015, he was recovering from substance abuse in a halfway house. A roommate brought back a tie-dye kit. Makareth says it saved his life. What was it about tie-dye that grabbed you?
In the very beginning, you don't really know how it's going to turn out. So you're waiting an entire day essentially to open it up, and you're just so excited to see what it's going to be like, and it's kind of like just this dopamine rush. I always equate it to Christmas morning.
Oh, that rush goes way, way back.
This is a very long history and longer than we can know, because the thing about fabric is that it disintegrates.
Shabad Simon Alexander is an artist and the author of a book about the art of tie-dye, which she says is thousands of years old.
Did different cultures specifically tie-dye in different distinct ways?
Each culture tie-dyes in a way that reflects their own materials and aesthetic preferences.
Alexander the Great mentioned beautiful printed cottons in India in 327 BC. And some of the earliest known pieces come from Peru. As for tie-dye's popularity in the United States, Simon Alexander says it took off in the 1950s and 60s for a few reasons.
One was the invention of cold water fiber reactive dyes, which meant that people were able to really tie-dye at home much more easily.
That and Woodstock in 1969, which saw performers like Janis Joplin and Joe Cocker donning dyed designs.
What's the appetite for it these days?
Oh, everybody's been going crazy for it.
At Tipsy Tie-Dye in New Jersey, siblings and co-owners Kevin and Katie Tagg host events where you tie-dye and imbibe.
So we tied it in such a way that now our design will be set. We just have to color it all in.
Golly, I mean, the possibilities are endless. And you can't do it wrong.
For Austin Makareth, who's been able to make tie-dye his full-time job, he's just enjoying the colorful ride.
There's times where I'm dyeing a piece until like 6 o'clock in the morning, having been working on it since 8 a.m. the previous day. Even in those moments, I'm not like upset that I'm having to do that, you know? It's more so like, I gotta get this done, this is gonna be a cool piece, it's totally gonna be worth it, you know?
Waist, length, I see dimples in the rivets. Okay.
In the intricately woven world of denim, this man, Michael Allen Harris, a commercial painter from Orange County, California, is sort of a celebrity.
You can't research this stuff on the web. Nobody knows anything about it. So it's like it's like a mystery, you know? It's like being a detective, a denim detective.
On weekends, he hunts old mines in search of blue gold. Old jeans, really old jeans, the jeans of the Old West, dirty, dusty, tattered jeans that can appraise for up to $100,000.
This piece dates from about 1873, 74, when the rivets on the top right here are unstamped. They're stamped only on the back.
Oh my goodness. Harris found this jacket, one of the oldest denim jackets known to exist, which Lynn Downey, the historian emeritus at Levi Strauss, showed us.
This has its previous life permanently imprinted on it. Our designers are the biggest users of the historical collections here. There's such understanding, there's such respect and such love for this.
Downey says these antique jeans are prized by designers because of their wear patterns. Today, those patterns are recreated by jean designers like Lauren Kronk for that all-important lived-in look.
If you look at the way an old pair of jeans has been worn away or torn, it's sometimes easy to surmise what kind of early life it had. If there are really significant wrinkles on the back of the knee, for example, you can tell that the person either spent a lot of time on a horse or did some sort of job where he was bending his knees a lot.
Cowboys wore them. So did bikers, like the one Marlon Brando played in The Wild One.
Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got?
As did the demonstrators that brought down the Berlin Wall. No other garment personifies freedom more than denim blue jeans. But jeans were originally workwear. They were the essential clothing of a hard day in the mines when Jacob Davis and Levi Strauss patented the idea to use a metal rivet to hold denim together. And those jeans were made in America, like the rigid fabric from which they were cut. That is until the 1990s, when companies like Levi's began to shut down most of their American manufacturing.
I mean, it's not only Levi's, it's everybody, so.
So you might say they don't make jeans like that anymore. That is, until you meet Roy Slaper.
I like the idea of a whole factory. You know, a whole factory of old machines that I'm the mechanic and I'm the head designer.
He is, in fact, a one-man sweatshop. Slaper uses 14 different machines to make a single pair of jeans.
out of this one-room workshop in Oakland, California.
This is like a big deal for me because this is my denim.
And had it custom made at one of the world's oldest continuously operating denim mills, Cone Denim's White Oak Mill in Greensboro, North Carolina. The fabric is woven on looms over 50 years old, using a process that hasn't changed in hundreds of years.
His jeans are not only made the old-fashioned way, in fact, they're designed to actually look better as they age, right down to the buttons.
When they wear out, they get kind of coppery, brassy color. Basically, everything on the jean is made so that as it wears, it looks more beautiful than when it's new.
The cost for all this scrupulous attention to detail? A tidy $340. You see, in the venerable world of jeans, what's old is new again. Except a little more expensive.
Willie was our inaugural fit for men, and
like jeans designed by Matt and Carrie Edmondson in Nashville, Tennessee.
Matt and I both were always very in tune to this fabric.
Their company is named after their grandparents, Imogene and Willie. Of course, jeans like these require special care.
We encourage, mainly due to small amount of shrinkage, to not wash your jeans for 6 months.
Believe it or not, others are even more particular about the care of their jeans.
I think the extreme is to never wash your jeans. This sort of comes from the school that as miners and people wore their jeans, the indigo left the fabric and caused these amazing wear patterns to sort of evolve into the jean.
See, this is what you get when you don't wash. You know, like, who knows if this was ever washed? These creases are so strong that they're actually breaking through here.
I can't think of any other piece of clothing that elicits the kind of emotional response and memory that blue jeans do. You're touching your own history every day. You're wearing your own history every day.
These jeans may be torn, but woven in them is an American history of work and play.